Okay, so welcome everybody to today's session on consumer-centered energy initiatives around driving a fast, fair, and accountable energy transition. Let's just wait one more moment while a few more participants arrive, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we'll begin because I can see people are still flowing into the room, but I don't want to lose any time today. So good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. My name is Nina Campbell. I am the global lead for the Clean Energy Futures program at Consumers International. And on behalf of Consumers International, I'm very pleased to welcome you all to our session today. As I said, the subject is consumer-centered energy initiatives for driving a fast, fair, and accountable energy transition. And this forms part of a whole host of activities that Consumers International is running this week as part of our Sustainable Lifestyle Summit. Held to mark World Consumer Rights Day, which officially takes place this Saturday, 15th of March. So Consumers International and our more than 200 members all over the world are all tackling the top global issues for consumers and fighting for fair, safe, and sustainable marketplace for all. In particular, within our Clean Energy Futures program, and actually, perhaps we can pop some slides up at this point, Seb. Thank you, just bringing those up, because I just want to share a word about how we're thinking about clean energy futures here at Consumers International. So our mission within this program is really around advocating for that fast, fair, and accountable transition, and really about putting consumers at the center of that transition, recognizing the crucial role that they play in driving the transition forward. And for us, it's not just about championing consumer protection, it's very much about that as in this fast changing environment with new technologies coming online all the time, but also about the empowerment of consumers and enabling them to really step into their critical role that they will be playing and are playing in the future energy system, which we know has exciting potential to be much more inclusive and participatory than the old system. So on the side here, you can see some examples of some of the activities that Consumers International program is doing in the clean energy space. I won't speak to all of these, except to point out perhaps in the middle at the bottom there, we're particularly pleased with our new collaboration with the International Energy Agency, and that our Director General Helena Laurent is sitting on the Global Commission for People-Centered Energy Transitions now. And that relationship's forming a big part of our work as we work towards COP30. But without further ado, I'll move on to a bit of housekeeping. So we wanted to let you all know that interpretation is available for this session in French and Spanish, I believe. I'm not certain we have Arabic today, but you can find out by going to the bottom of your screen, as you can see on the example here, selecting interpretation and selecting the language that you would like to listen to. So we're asking all of our speakers to speak slowly and clearly to make sure that that's possible. There's also an option for closed captions. So that's a written version of that translation and some instructions there to help you access that feature. I would also note that the session's being recorded. So we're restricting any AI note takers if any of you have them, but we will certainly be circulating the recording of this webinar after the event. We have a code of conduct, which I think everybody has adhered to on arriving. And We have no chat function in this session. However, time permitting, we are looking forward to sharing a Slido poll with all of you, which will be hopefully easily accessible by everybody just by using the QR code, which is being shown now. You can just take your phones and using the camera, scan that QR code, and it should take you directly to the Slido poll. You can have a go at that now. We'll come back to the responses later on in the session. But without further ado, I think let's kick off the discussion. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation we're going to be having today. We're going to be talking about the role for consumer advocates in supporting consumers to be champions in the energy transition. We're also going to be hearing about a range of different consumer-centered energy initiatives that are being run by the members that we have on the call today in their respective countries. And we have a great lineup of speakers from across the globe. We're expecting to have Fiji with us. Unfortunately, the CEO of the Consumer Council of Fiji has been taken ill, but we've got 5 other fantastic speakers from across the globe, from Australia, Thailand, Chile, Morocco, and Pakistan. So really looking forward to getting into that. And I will now hand over to our first speaker, Sari Aungsomuang, the Secretary General of the Thailand Consumers Council. And she is also a leading consumer activist in Thailand with a long career in the field of over 2 decades. So it's my great pleasure to pass the floor over to Sari to share a few words about what's happening in Thailand.
Thank you, Nina, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Well, my pleasure to talk in this session that arranged by Consumer International in very special occasion to celebrate World Consumer Rights Day. TCC exercising power under the establishment of Consumer Organization Council Act, which states that TCC had authority to protect and defend the rights of consumers, as well as presenting policy to the minister and related agency here in Thailand. Moreover, state agencies are obliged to officially issue response to TCC within 60 days after receive the recommendation. For the consumer energy access and affordable, TCC done a lot of work on consumer advocating support the legitimate need for consumer to access essential energy service. TCC actively campaigned for fair and affordable electricity pricing to ensure all consumers can access essential energy service. Key initiatives include first, advocating for fair electricity tariffs. TCC has proposed to reform the reduced and just electricity cost, including restructuring pricing mechanism and reduce dependency on high-cost fossil fuels. The second one, support net metering for solar energy. TCC had put the net metering policy to allow households to offset electricity costs by producing and consuming their own solar energy. This would lower electricity bill and promote renewable energy adoption. The third one is opposing unnecessary energy cost burden. We had recommend halting new fossil fuel power purchase agreement and negotiating costly private sector energy contract to reduce excess energy cost passed on the consumer. The second practical one, TCC in partnership with Consumer International participating in the one-stop shop project with a pilot initiative aim at enhancing consumer access to renewable energy solution. These project effort offer consumer comprehensive service, including information on available solution, technical and financial advice, and coordination of installation and maintenance service by simplifying the process. The one-stop shop project empower consumer to adopt renewable energy system, contributing to broader goal of sustainable consumption with affordable and competitive market price. And TCC Solar Rooftop Campaign advocate for subsidy and incentive to lower installation costs for household fan net metering policy, allowing consumer to sell excess energy back to the grid, regulatory reform that remove unnecessary restriction on solar energy adoption. Last, my last point, we advocate a lot on the power development plan 2024, which is 10 years plan from the government. We campaign too much to do, two things the government must to do, and 7 things that the government should not do. First, the 2 things must to do is very clear targeting for the development of electricity generation capacity from rooftop solar power, because the power development plan set the proportion of electricity generation from solar power at 60% of the total electricity generation, but we doesn't know where it come from. It can come from solar rooftop, or it can come from the farm. That what we would have to make it very clear on that part. The second thing that the government should do, increasing the efficiencies of energy system, energy efficiency, by seriously developing and increasing efficiency of electric use, power transmission line, and energy storage system. Both of these things will allow the public to use electricity at a cheaper price and be able to rely on themselves in terms of energy. And the 7 thing that the seven thing that we don't want the government to do in the power plan, power development plan is number 1. Right now, we got a problem of overestimate electricity demand forecast. Second one, plan to build additional fossil fuel power plant. The third one, increase investment in natural gas and pushing it to become the country's main energy source. Number 4, new electricity generation, citing the stability of electricity system. And number 5, the use of the fossil fuel that cause carbon dioxide or emission, and the claim to plan compensatory forecast. Number 6, the thing number 6 is the use of low carbon hydrogen technology with fossil power plant with increased electricity production costs, citing pollution reduction. And 7, purchasing electricity from dam abroad, with categorized as a clean energy, even though it has a high environmental impact. All 7 things mentioned will cause the public to pay more electricity and also have an impact on environmental. I think the power development plan is a very highly impact that the government would like to do for at least 10 years. This is the most impact for the Thai society and the consumer as a whole. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks so much, Sari. There's an amazing wealth of activities and advice that the Thai Consumer Council is providing to government there as well as society. Really impressive that you're acting both on the supply side and the demand side with some very detailed recommendations. And we're also very excited about the one-stop shop platform, which you mentioned, which I know will be coming online soon. Okay, so let's move on to our next speaker. I'd like to invite Matthew Steen, who is the Director of Reviews and Testing at Choice Australia, to take the floor. He's been with Choice for 20 years or so and continues to be dedicated to making Australia more fair, safe and just for Australian consumers. So looking forward to hearing from you, Matthew.
Thanks, Nina. I was going to cover off some of the two sides of our coin, which is product testing and services with regards to energy improvements. So over the last several years, Choice is starting to, because we have our own test laboratories, we've been starting to do a lot of the products that are coming onto the market or have been on the market for a long time, but to do more of those areas which are more influential for transitioning Australia over to a more non-fossil fuel reliant households. So we do solar PV tests. So that's the solar panels on the roof. As a bit of a compliance measure, Australia now has around about 37% of households that have solar. We also have started doing heat pump hot water systems as a data collation project. And we also do electric cars and electric bikes. So from a review perspective, we test these products or we collect as much data and give that data back to Australians so they can make decisions on which ones will give them the best bang for buck and also which ones are the most highly efficient. Of course, we've been doing a lot of this stuff in the background as well. So over the last 20 years or 30 years, we've been doing ceiling fans, your air conditioners, your electric heaters, all the things that kind of move Australia away from gas. We've also started to slow down a lot of our gas testing. So we used to test a lot of gas cooktops. We haven't tested since 22, and we haven't tested gas heaters since 2017. So that kind of covers off some of the testing that we're doing so that we can give as much guidance as possible to people in Australia through our compare tools. The other side of the coin is obviously services. So for things like services, we want to give people as much knowledge and advice as possible. And it's kind of like the one-stop shop that Sari was talking about. We call it a home energy saver tool, but it's very household dependent. So basically you go into it and you answer a series of questions and it pops out with, these are the things that would make the most sense in your household. And that's a very simple decision tree type of tool. We also have partnered, where we can't actually do it internally, we partner with external experts in the area, and they might be for purpose or government or profit entities. And one of the examples is we have partnered or collaborated with the ACT, which is the Australian Capital Territory in Australia, to do a home energy saver tool with them, where we share some of our results for things that will make a difference in people's homes, like your cooktops, your either induction or electric ceramic, or air cons or freestanding ovens or heat pump hot water systems. The other thing we do is we partnered with Solar Quotes. So Solar Quotes essentially gives people the best guidance as to, in their particular area by postcode, who should they go to actually get a better experience in installing solar panels or batteries. Often they are grouped together, although solar is obviously have a lot more penetration to the Australian market than batteries do right now. For actual energy costs, there's a very strong focus on cost of living in Australia at the moment, as I imagine there are in many parts of the world. And we partnered with a tool that makes a lot of sense in deregulated energy systems, where there's a lot of energy retailers that sell that power on from a beginning of wholesale to back to consumers at a heightened price so they still make a profit. We have basically partnered with someone that does auto switching between the cheapest retailers so that it gives people a better direction to solve that high price of energy. And a lot of the tweaks that are made to that are around giving people the option of purchasing green power, making sure that they're getting feed-in tariffs from their solar panels. So that's the money that you might get from the retailer because you're pumping energy back into the grid from the solar panels. So those are the two main ones. The future for us, we're looking at how to improve the thermal envelope of our housing. And the way that Choice can do it is doing some testing around insulation and double glazing. I don't know if you've heard the commentary on Australian houses, but they're quite poor in terms of thermal envelope. It's like living in a wooden tent. So it's not as if there's a great, it's a high energy flow of heat in summer, and summers in Australia obviously are quite hot. And so we're looking at how we can actually give people advice on the double glazing side of things so that they don't lose as much heat through the windows, and insulation in the walls and ceilings. And that's kind of where we're up to at the moment. Back to you, Nina.
Thanks so much, Matthew. Really interesting to hear that you also have a sort of one-stop shop offering there. We might have to come back to that in the discussion, share some experience on that one. Let's move on to our next speaker. Sorry about that. So our next speaker is Stefan Larenas Riobo, who is the president of the Organization of Consumers and Users of Chile. I know that Stefan is a social scientist with a long career in the consumer movement also, particularly advocating for the Latin American region. So Stefan, please take the floor and share some of what's happening in Chile.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning. Let me say that we have a special situation for 2 weeks ago. We have a long blackout in our country that was about 10 hours. So we are part of the significant impact in the economy. Growth again, the discussion about what kind of energy we are going to have. So they also raise the question how dependent are we from electricity over our activities. So that arises also a question, how you say before, what kind of energy are going to use? And of course, it's coming new voice or old voices about the restart, the thermoelectrical coal driving, and we advocate, of course, for our new and green technology. So our voice as Consumers International, member of Consumers International, using this occasion, try to make a profit. I mean, we say so for this situation, and try to influence policymakers that we have been working green or renewable energy for a long time, and we have today in Chile we have a lot of resource for making converts to the renewable energy. It's a fact but of course, it's a question of how you can manage it with the consumers. How consumers can start to ask, start to press for, I mean, not only green energies, but cheaper one. So we have working now for a couple of months in a website to make closer the offer, the suppliers and the consumers, because we have a lot of initiatives in Chile about solar energy, mainly solar energy, but quite cheap, quite expensive. Sorry, quite expensive. So and they are splitting in the market. So what we try to do now is to close the private sector and the consumers, so they have access to cheaper renewable energy. See, how we can do it? We do it through calling the best providers, and sometimes we are making awareness of the population. Now you have experience of blackout. Now you know that you have a possibility to have access to renewable energy and create autonomy. That is very important, because you see we have a long country, and it's very difficult to don't have an interconnected from. We have in system we interconnect our energy suppliers. So we could work with autonomous drivers and autonomy forms to get energy, but it's also awareness, and that's what I want to do. We have been working before, but now with website and consumer campaign that we have to start, we hope that it will be a successful one, because we have an opportunity to promote use of renewable energy in the country, and we are going to do our website, our awareness campaign. We are today, and I'm finished with this. We have today the possibility also to create the awareness that you, in your home, you can have solar home, have solar energy for your own region, for your own region, and break the monopoly of 2 or 3 energy producers, who just say that it's a natural monopoly and you can't do anything against it. So in the practice, we're going to demonstrate that you can serve the person, community the organization, community persons, the population could be a better alternative. They have an alternative to in renewable energy and green energy. I think that despite the blackout or everything what happened for a couple of years ago, it's a good chance for us to make our voice stronger. That's the one.
Thank you, Stefan. It's really interesting to hear that context of having just recently experienced a blackout that really highlights the importance of having access to those local energy generation solutions. So not just a price and affordability issue, but also a resilience issue. obviously in Chile and certainly in other economies as well. So thank you very much for sharing that. So let's move on now to Nadim Iqbal, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Network for Consumer Protection in Pakistan. Again, a very long career in the consumer movement. We've got a fabulous panel today, and I understand has been trained both in Pakistan and the United Kingdom. So I'd be very interested to hear what's happening in Pakistan at this time. Thank you, Nadim. You'll just need to come off mute. And then there we go.
Thank you, Nina. And thank you very much for making me part of such an excellent discourse. So in Pakistan, on the energy sector, we have a unique case. Here, the consumers are not only paying for the electricity they consume, but also for the electricity which is produced. So roughly in Pakistan, 45,000 megawatt electricity is produced, and of this only 33% is consumed. And for other leftover surplus electricity of something 66%, the consumers are also paying for that one. So the prices of electricity are almost double from even from the developing countries. Like our price, European Union has something per unit roughly around 11 cents. So ours is something around 13 cents. And ours is even more than that of the China. And this, the whole situation is pushing the consumers to go for the e-solutions, for the solar panels, for the the e-cars as well. And also another sector from another aspect, in 1990s, the 100% of the electricity we were producing in Pakistan was hydel electricity. But then there was some deficit, and we brought in independent power producers. And now only 24% is produced from the hydel resources, and 50% is produced by hydel, renewable, and nuclear, while 50% is produced by fossil fuel. But here is the catch, because the government is struggling economically, and we also have to import the fossil fuel from the Gulf countries, and there we are paying the huge price also there. So the government is also seeing that thing to come out this economic mess. So government is seeing it's not by love, it's just economic force. The government is also seeing the solarization, introduction of e-cars, introduction of e-bikes, introduction of e-public buses. So this is kind of the only thing which is kind of an impediment is, the government is having taxes from the electricity bills, and there are huge tax collection out from there and from the petrol. So from where it's going to get those taxes? So there has been debate like, should they be taxing the solar panels, or should they be taxing those consumers who are on grid? So there is also kind of a, these circumstances are moving the consumers, particularly in the rural areas, to go for off-grid solutions, off-grid solarization. So these are some of the positive things that are happening in Pakistan. And the Network for Consumer Protection has had interactions with the regulators, energy regulators, and others. It's how to improve consumer redress mechanisms. So we have had engagement with them and the training. And now we are also running a TV program, YouTube channel, Consumer TV, from where we get what is happening in the regulatory hearings, where all the stakeholders are there, and we try to convey these messages in a simple format to the consumer. And in addition to that, when we monitor what exactly is happening at the macro economic level. So we think the government has worked, and there has been plans, but we need to give it a push to really implement that one. Otherwise, the people are ready and people are getting more and more independent as long as they want to produce their own energy sources, and they are going toward, the off-grid solutions.
Fascinating collection of examples there, Nadeem. Thank you so much. In particular, really interesting to hear about consumer TV. That is a really innovative communication method. I'd love to hear a bit more about if we get a chance in the discussion. But for now, let's move on to our final speaker, Wadi Mahdi, who is president of the National Federation of Consumer Associations in Morocco and a strong partner of Consumers International. I believe Wadi is also an expert in law and a university professor. So no doubt we'll share something about FNAC's engagement on the government's activities and regulation. Thank you. I should just signal to everybody that Wadi was speaking in French, so this is a good moment to go to your interpretation panel and select the language of your choice for listening.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à Consumers International de pouvoir me donner cette opportunité. C'est pour monter ou la faire monter la voix du consommateur marocain, et notamment dans cette, disons, cette session de cette année qui parle de l'énergie, et plus particulièrement dans notre conférence. Il faudrait souligner aussi que dans le Maroc, donc, il y a pas mal de choses qui ont été faites, et bien entendu, il y a aussi pas mal de choses dont on souffre. Selon le ministre de l'énergie et de l'environnement, elle a parlé de le Maroc, donc à 20 ans de retard pour pouvoir accéder à certaines énergies, et notamment l'énergie renouvelable. Comme vous le savez, le Maroc est pauvre en énergie fossile, donc ce qui fait que nous sommes dépendants d'autres pays pour pouvoir avoir cette énergie-là. Ça nous coûte de l'argent, ça nous coûte énormément de l'argent, et cet argent, donc, cette importation impacte effectivement le prix de l'énergie au Maroc. Par contre, le Maroc est un pays où le soleil est très présente pendant une grande partie de l'année, et je vous invite par l'occasion à venir profiter du soleil du Maroc. Cela dit, nous avons aussi de l'énergie renouvelable que nous pouvons explorer, nous pouvons mettre en exergue, bien entendu, que l'énergie solaire ou bien l'énergie éolienne. Alors, il faudrait noter aussi que l'accès et l'abordabilité au niveau de l'énergie au Maroc rencontrent certains problèmes, malgré que l'expansion au niveau du pays, donc nous sommes arrivés à presque une couverture électrique pour du 100% au pays, mais cela reste quand même très cher par rapport à les pays avoisinants, les pays qui ont le même revenu que le Maroc. La tarification et la régulation, donc, au niveau de l'électricité, il faudrait savoir aussi que le Maroc a fait un grand effort depuis très longtemps en réglementant les tarifs de l'électricité et en la subventionnant. Donc, de ce côté, l'électricité, donc, même si elle est polluante et inaccessible, elle est quand même subventionnée par l'État marocain. Seuls disons, les consommateurs vulnérables que malheureusement n'ont pas pu avoir effectivement un prix qui ne dépasse pas leur pouvoir d'achat, mais on travaille effectivement dans ce domaine pour pouvoir prendre en considération, sensibiliser le gouvernement pour cette, disons, cette partie des consommateurs. Quand on parle de ça, donc on parle aussi de certaines aides qui peuvent fournir aux consommateurs vulnérables, financer certaines opérations, et notamment quand on parle de l'énergie renouvelable. Nous constatons que année après année, cette énergie renouvelable s'installe surtout dans les grandes villes et chez les consommateurs ou les citoyens aisés. Par contre, il n'y a pas encore une accessibilité pour les personnes vulnérables. Nous avons, nous, en tant que fédération, et ça fait quand même une petite douzaine d'années que nous avons demandé au gouvernement de mettre en place un système de financement, un système d'aide pour cette catégorie de personnes en leur procurant le matériel. Et comme vous le savez très bien aussi, que le matériel pour mettre en place l'énergie solaire, donc ça coûte. Et là, les consommateurs vulnérables n'ont pas cette accessibilité à ce matériel-là. Ce qui a été proposé par notre fédération, c'est de subventionner ou d'aider ces personnes-là, ces consommateurs vulnérables, à mettre en place ce, ce système. Et au lieu de, disons, d'acheter ce produit-là, d'acheter ce matériel-là, serait financé par le coût qu'ils consommaient avec l'électricité normale, disons l'électricité qui consomme ou qui travaille avec l'énergie fossile. Euh, donc, bon, malheureusement, nous n'avons pas eu gain de cause jusqu'à aujourd'hui, mais on a pu au moins réussir à mettre en place une loi qui va pouvoir effectivement donner l'occasion à certains consommateurs de produire de l'électricité via effectivement l'énergie renouvelable et notamment l'énergie solaire et l'injecter dans le système public. Cela permettrait aussi de réduire les coûts. C'est vrai que nous avons mis en place cette loi, mais malheureusement, on n'est pas encore arrivé à l'exécution et à la mise en marche de cette loi. Mais dans tous les cas, le mouvement consumériste marocain a quand même travaillé dans ce sens en sensibilisant les consommateurs par la formation, par des ateliers de formation, des campagnes de sensibilisation et à l'incitation aussi à réduire la consommation pour pouvoir effectivement bénéficier d'un retour, disons, au niveau de paiement du prix de la consommation. Donc, ce sont justement des actions qui ont été menées par le mouvement consumériste et notamment la Fédération nationale des associations du consommateur. Ceci permet aussi permet à sensibiliser les consommateurs à utiliser la transition vers l'électromobilité qui commence à prendre effectivement place au Maroc, notamment en 2024. Nous avons constaté que la voiture électrique, la voiture hybride commence à grignoter grignoter des marges au niveau des véhicules qui circulent avec l'énergie fossile. Donc, nous espérons arriver effectivement à une situation plus confortable dans les années à venir. Nous avons maintenu des réunions effectivement avec le ministère de tutelle, notamment le ministère de l'Énergie et de l'Environnement. Il y a un projet qui est mis en place, donc, et surtout pour la sensibilisation, mis en place avec cet organisme-là. Et nous espérons effectivement, comme je l'ai dit, dépasser ce retard structurel et arriver à une autosuffisance énergétique se basant sur l'énergie propre au Maroc. Je crois que c'est tout pour moi et j'espère que cela ne sera pas, disons, une opération là, ou là, une intervention qui est lourde sur vos oreilles.
Thank you so much. Really interesting that you're also raising the question of vulnerable consumers there and the affordability issues that I think have run through everybody's presentations today. Thank you to all the speakers for a really interesting selection of both issues and solutions that you've touched on in the few minutes that you had to share a bit of an insight into the huge range of work that's obviously going on in all of these organizations. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I'm looking forward to taking a moment to hear a little bit more from all of you. But before we do that, I know that our audience would like to express some views as well. So I would like to put the Slido poll back up on the screen, Seb, if you don't mind. So that if everybody, so we've got a few votes in so far, anybody who hasn't yet had a chance to vote can either use their phone to follow that QR code on the screen and do the voting on your phone, or you can go to slido.com, put in the number there and do your votes live. So the question that we're asking is what are the most important new energy opportunities or challenges for that consumer advocates should be thinking about on behalf of future consumers? That looks like perhaps we've already got our full complement of votes coming through. If anyone would like to add an additional vote at this stage, we'll see it pop up. But I can see obviously that supporting vulnerable consumers with access and affordability is clearly a strong winner in response to that question. Energy access and developing community renewable energy projects also coming through. And those were all topics that were mentioned by our speakers today. So that really resonates with the work that's going on in consumer organizations, obviously. Looks like another vote for vulnerable consumers there. So maybe it would be interesting just reacting to that. Oh, that's coming to life now. A few more votes coming in, but I can see that the work around vulnerable consumers is really shining out there. So let's perhaps put that question back to our panelists. So most of you did mention work around supporting vulnerable consumers. So I guess the question I'd put to the panelists, what are the challenges, the main challenges that you see for the vulnerable consumers in your countries? And how are you identifying those vulnerable consumers? What programs or ideas for programs do you see that might be useful in supporting those consumers in your region? Would any of our panelists like to respond on that? I can see that although the votes are changing on the Slido, the ranking in terms of top issue and second and third issues are staying relatively the same. So there's obviously a bit of a theme there. So Seb, maybe you can take that Slido down. Thanks everybody for participating in that. Would any of our panelists like to say a little bit more about their experience supporting vulnerable consumers?
Maybe I can give an experience here in Thailand.
Thanks, Sari. Sure.
There are specific support to the vulnerable group that like you use lower energy for a month, right, 150 units and then you got free of charge. And also we have a numbers of the like the lower income group that every month the government is support for some certain amounts like 20 US dollar, more than 20 US dollar is about uh, 35 US dollar a month that you can spending for your electric bill, something like that. That is the project that government run. And right now, we would like the government, because this cannot be sustainable for the long run. And we would like the government to change like for the solar rooftop instead of the household in over the country that should be doing on that part. And the government try to set up like the budgeting solar plan for the solar rooftop also at the same time right now here in Thailand. Yeah, thank you.
Interesting, Sari. So you're suggesting there that actually more impactful than simply providing subsidies for vulnerable consumers on their bills would actually be to support them to invest in solar, rooftop solar, as a longer term solution. That sounds really interesting. I know that there's a program in place here in New Zealand which is targeting investment in vulnerable community, investment in solar subsidies for vulnerable communities, including remote communities. And I think it's a really interesting way of framing those funding streams. Does anybody else on the panel have a comment about the extent to which the programs that are targeting vulnerable consumers from the government are working, or whether there are any other solutions that you see there? Matthew, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So we found over the last few years, actually probably about 15 years, that the rebate solution that the government supplied, whether that's federally or state, has been very effective, as per the 37% of households actually having solar. So that's been really effective. What's happened in the last few years is they've released a fund, $1 billion fund. The government's developed $1 billion fund for home energy upgrades. So that's where essentially there's the CEFC, which is the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, works with banks and lenders to offer cheaper loans so that people can transition over to clean energy. So that's a couple of the ways that Australia has done that in the last 2 to 15 years.
Yeah, those funding streams are really critical, aren't they? So it's really interesting to share some of the innovative ways that the funding is connecting to different consumers there. Thanks for that, Matthew. I wanted, maybe with our last moment, unless anyone would like to raise their hand to speak about vulnerable consumers further. Oh yeah, okay, everybody wants to talk about vulnerable consumers. Let's do that. Let's carry on. So Wadi, I think your hand went up first, and then we'll go to Nadim.
Alors, disons, pour que puisse gagner le défi du consommateur vulnérable. Donc, il y a une petite vision que je peux partager avec vous. Donc, au niveau quand je parle du Maroc, il y a aussi les pays d'Afrique qui sont presque semblables au niveau de l'énergie marocaine. Donc, je ne parlerai pas de ceux qui ont quand même la possibilité d'avoir l'énergie fossile à un prix très abordable, ce qui pourrait aussi faciliter le passage de l'énergie fossile à l'électrification, plus important, et l'énergie en général. Donc, il y a le défi, en particulier dans les zones rurales, ou urbaines, donc défavorisées, qui peuvent être confrontées à des coûts élevés. Et pour là, donc, les mesures qu'il faudrait faire, je crois qu'il y a l'inclusion sociale pour une transition équilibrée et ça doit être nécessaire pour mettre en place certains programmes de soutien et des soutiens ciblés, comme je dis tout à l'heure, des aides financières pour les foyers vulnérables. Il y a aussi le, le- 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 le communautarisme énergétique pour pouvoir effectivement avoir un coût moins cher en utilisant dans un cadre peut-être de coopérative l'énergie solaire et cela permettra aussi de faire bénéficier à cette tranche de consommateurs une accessibilité énergétique à moindre coût. Bien entendu, il faudrait, et ça aussi c'est très important, il faudrait que le consommateur lui-même ait cette éducation à une responsabilité à utiliser l'énergie quand il faut. Et ce problème-là, nous l'avons constaté chez nous en tant que consommateurs, c'est un geste qui est très banal, mais qu'il faudrait l'adopter. C'est éteindre les lumières. Ça nous coûtera moins cher. Quand on éteint les lumières, on ne consomme pas beaucoup et on ne paiera pas beaucoup. Ça, il faudrait, et là, sur cette thématique-là que nous travaillons pour sensibiliser le consommateur, et comme vous le savez, il y a quand même 6 ans que le Maroc subit une sécheresse très grave. Et effectivement, donc ce que nous faisons au niveau de l'électricité, de l'énergie, nous le faisons aussi au niveau de l'eau parce que l'eau aussi est une denrée très importante, elle est très rare. Et si on l'épargne pas, donc on aura effectivement et malheureusement un coût très élevé.
I'm glad that you mentioned community energy, Wadi, because I think that's a really exciting developing area around the potential, particularly for vulnerable consumers, to work at the community level to pool resources and actually have that opportunity to engage as active participants in the energy generation space. Something I'd like to work more deeply on from the Consumers International perspective. Before we're almost out of time, so I'm going to pass the floor to Nadim to share some comments on vulnerable consumers in Pakistan before I bring the discussion to a close.
Yeah, there is a fear in Pakistan that there might be the elite capture of solarization and e-cars because the cost is quite expensive. So we are pushing the government and doing the advocacy with the government to do something for the vulnerable consumers. So the government has started with a program. They are freely distributing these solar panels to certain households, particularly those vulnerable communities, and also e-bikes have also been distributed among the female students. So it's a bit of a the political kind of a discourse and political slogans. They are using the whole thing to get more and more political mileage. So we see such developments more in a more positive way. The quick question is about community needs to collaborate with each other and get those solar panels because the indigenous solar production is not there in Pakistan and we are getting everything from the neighboring China. So the community has to bring in the solar themselves. So these are some of the suggestions.
Some exciting ideas there. I like the idea of providing bikes and actually promoting women's access to that active mobility option. Sounds great. I'd love to hear more about that in a future discussion. So there's so much that we could dig into further, but I'm afraid we've reached time already. So I hope that some of the examples that have been shared today have provided a bit of insight into what consumer advocacy groups are doing in this space, which is obviously a huge amount. They've certainly provided some really inspiring examples of what's possible. And I think there's a lot that we're going to be wanting to watch see how it develops over time. So we'll be looking to host similar discussions on this topic in the future. But also the rest of the week, we have a continuing program of sessions dealing with sustainable lifestyles as part of the World Consumer Rights Day Summit here at Consumers International. I think Seb has put some links in the chat to enable all our participants today to sign up for other sessions before the week is out. But that brings us to the end of this session, and I would like to sincerely thank our panelists for joining today and sharing a snippet, a snapshot of what's going on in your country in this space. And we will look forward to hearing more about it in future discussions. So thank you everybody for joining, and have a wonderful day.